Cheers guys, this is Games Writer and welcome to our Pokemon Sword and Shield review. Pokemon Sword and Shield has been surrounded by controversy before its release. Many complained of its lack of a national dex, reusing models from X and Y, and graphical performance in the wild area. In my experience, most of these complaints claiming the game is bad, and citing these reasons haven't actually played the game. In another video, I will be discussing my thoughts on the path that Pokemon is treading and how I feel about the direction the series has gone and my issues with it. In this video, I will be isolating Sword and Shield as its own experience and reviewing it critically as a game, not as an IP or franchise. Sword and Shield begins as most Pokemon games do. You're at home with your mom and your rival pops in and says, "Hey, come over." The difference between Sword and Shield and the other games is your rival's family does very well for themselves. When I exited our quaint little home and crossed the street, I saw a massive estate. I felt like Hop was flexing. You pick your starter Pokemon and embark on your adventure. I really enjoy this reoccurring opening because it pulls me back into the world of Pokemon and fills me with nostalgia. Brief disclaimer, I've been a fan of the series since the beginning and have played every entry. In Sword and Shield, the intro doesn't drag on and you can speed up the process by telling Hop you know what you're doing. This is the best beginning to a Pokemon game in my opinion. Sword and Shield has been praised for certain quality of life improvements, such as no HMs, being able to access your box from anywhere, and a flying taxi that transports you anywhere is available very early on in the game. My issue with that praise is most of these features were available in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Sword and Shield isn't revolutionary, but there are some good additions. For example, the wild area, a massive central location with tons of different wild Pokemon to catch and raid battles to be won, is a welcome addition. To me, the wild area feels like an improvement on the Pokemon Safari, a space designed for encountering and catching Pokemon. The wild area has many more features such as battling the wild Pokemon, using your Pokeballs, and is much larger than any Safari zone. Routes and towns are also incredibly unique and memorable. I find myself returning to towns or cities I have already been to because they're so different and iconic from one another. Routes were also more vertical than I expected, and Game Freak used the visible wild Pokemon to make the route feel unique and inhabited. Galar as a whole feels packed with life, with wild Pokemon jumping in and out of the water, hiding under the ground, and populating cities. I felt connected to Galar more than I expected. I felt like I was playing a Pokemon movie. I thought Dynamaxing would be another silly gimmick that Game Freak uses to differentiate the titles, and for the most part, it is. But I did find it to be much more enjoyable than I had imagined. The fact that you can only Dynamax in stadium battles or during raids made it a novel experience that I didn't grow tired of. I actually found Sword and Shield to have a great Pokédex. There was plenty of awesome Pokemon to pick from, and I had a hard time choosing what Pokemon to keep as part of my team, because there were so many good options. The typical side characters in Sword and Shield have their strengths and weaknesses. One of your rivals, Bede, is a breath of fresh air, as he is cocky and has conviction, compared to Hop, who has become the stereotypical rival who never challenges you and is constantly beneath you, more like a fan of yours than an actual rival. Hop's older brother Leon, the champion, isn't interesting, but at least he's not annoying. Marnie is the most interesting character, a worthy rival with an interesting team, and has the most believable personality, and comes from a cool little town. However, she comes with Team Yell, who are a pointless addition to give every Pokemon game a team antagonist. They also serve as the "you can't go to this part of the map yet" blockade. Gym leaders play a larger part in the overall story, and gym challenges are engaging and fun, until they cease to exist in the final 3 gyms. Outside of the gym challenge, the story is incredibly weak. It's not meant to be a big part of the game, the narrative acts more as a way to guide you through the world. In Sword and Shield, the main storyline is the gym challenge, and I have no issues with that. However, there's also another storyline involving the chairman and the wishing stars that just feels gross, for a lack of a better term. And I feel comfortable saying that because it feels like there was no effort placed in the storyline at all. Characters make decisions and have motives that are never justified and do not make any sense. There's absolutely no payoff and leads me to my biggest complaint about Sword and Shield. I wasn't bothered by the lack of a national dex. I thought there were plenty of Pokemon to choose. I wasn't bothered by the reuse of models. I thought the Pokemon looked great. I thought the moves looked great. I wasn't bothered by the graphical performance. I'm just not someone who puts a lot of stock in how nice the graphics are. It's always just a bonus to me if they are nice. I was bothered by the amount of corners cut by Game Freak. I'm not sure if they rushed the release. I have no idea why these corners were cut. There might have been a very good reason, but as of right now, I haven't been given one. As I stated previously, the Wishing Star storyline had no payoff and felt like it was included just to have another storyline and wasn't given the attention it needed. The gym challenges weren't a part of the game anymore after the 5th gym, and they were so elaborate and engaging at the beginning of the game that it was a notable removal. For example, the caves in Galar are simply called Galar Mine Number 1 and Galar Mine Number 2. Need I say more? Like I said, I have no idea why these were reduced or omitted from the game. They specifically designed an NPC and wrote that NPC dialogue to unlock the ability to control the game volume, but they couldn't come up with proper names for the mines. Even Mine West and Mine East would have been better. At least gives them something that describes them, rather just number 1 and number 2. Begs the question, does Game Freak understand their fans and what the priorities of the fans are? I don't know if Game Freak is out of touch, if they're being rushed to release these games, or if the majority of the fans want to make Curry camp and need a new battle gimmick every installment to keep them coming back. I think part of the problem is with the fans of the franchise, myself included. We constantly compare Pokemon games to previous Pokemon games, not other video games. This allows Game Freak to only push the franchise further than its previous releases. Finally, Zelda ditched that formula and pushed Breath of the Wild leaps and bounds ahead of its predecessor, and won numerous Game of the Year awards. Why can't Pokemon do the same? It sells well enough, it's established as a powerhouse gaming franchise, it has an incredible world built. If Pokemon remains fun, I will remain a fan. But as longtime fans who have given Pokemon our hard-earned time and money, we deserve something spectacular. And I believe it's a compliment to Game Freak that I and others still believe they're capable of creating the spectacular. I'm sorry that was as much a rant as it was a review, but that's what happens when you're reviewing a game that you have personal feelings about. Now you're older and wiser than you were before you clicked on this video. For more reviews and more Pokemon, remember Games Writer, and if you won't, then you should subscribe.